Chapter 13. I meet Winnie's evil twin brother, the whirlpool. If y'all are going to the water, you stay away from Collier's Landing. A couple years ago, Miss Tom's little boy Jimmy got caught up in some kind of whirlpool there, and they didn't find the poor soul's body for 3 days. I'd only half listened to what Grandma Sands had said, and now me and Joey and Byron were standing at the sign with the arrow that pointed in two directions. The one pointed to the left said "Public Swimming"; the other one, pointing to the right, looked like it had been on the post for more than 1,000,000 years, but if you got close to it you could read, "Warning, no trespassing, no swimming, no public entree. Signed, Joe Collier." "Oh, man, Collier's Landing," I said. "Let's go." I knew Joey wouldn't like this, but I figured me and Vi could talk her into coming and not snitching. Joey said, Kenny, you heard Grandma Sands tell about that little boy getting lost in the water. What was that thing called that she got him? She said got him?" Daddy Cool said. "Didn't you hear what she said, Joey? She said he got caught in a whirlpool." "Is that a fish?" Joey asked. "Uh-huh. You know who Winnie the Pooh is, don't you?" Me and Joey both nodded. "Well, the whirlpool is Winnie's evil twin brother. Don't no one ever write about him, 'cause they don't want to scare y'all kids. What he does is hide under water and snatch stupid kids down with him." Bi figured that dumb story was enough to scare me off, and he started walking in the direction of the public swimming. "If Kenny wants to take his stupid little behind down there and get snatched, let him." Vi grabbed Joey's hand and started pulling her along with him, but she skidded her feet in the dirt. "But Byron, what if the whirlpool comes down to where we're going? Can't he swim down there and get people too?" "Nah, Joey, the whirlpool won't come to public beaches. He just grabs folks that are too stingy to let peons come on their land, like this Collier guy." Who could understand Byron? Here was the chance for another fantastic adventure, and he was going the wrong direction. Something was wrong with him. If he was in Flint, and you told him not to do something, he'd go right out and do it. But now he was acting real dull and square. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe just like it had sucked all the energy out of me, it had sucked all the meanness and fun out of Byron. "You want to go? What you gonna do, punk?" Byron shouted over his shoulder. Joey yelled, "Come on, Kenny. You know what Grandma Sands said." I couldn't believe it. I really wanted to go see some kid drowned, and now Vi was choosing this time to listen to what a grown-up had told him. "Oh, man, I'm going to Collier's Landing." Vi shrugged. "Have fun." I shouted, "What's wrong with you? When are you going to start acting like you do normally do?" "What would Bumphead said if he saw you acting like this?" Byron flipped me a double middle finger and another finger sign I'd never seen before, and said, "Just keep your stupid little butt out of the water." "Forget you, I'm going." They kept walking. "I'm not playing." Joey waved. "I'm going to Collier Landing." They were gone. I looked in the direction the warning sign was pointing and started to get a little nervous. I turned and started to follow Joey and Byron, but finally decided I was really going to go to Collier Landing. Maybe Byron was getting sick of having more fantastic adventures, but I figured I was getting old enough to have some myself. "You're a couple of jive squares," I shouted, then walked off the way of the warning sign pointed. Byron must have thought I was stupid. Who ever heard of something called a whirlpool? Whirlpool. I wasn't sure what the lie was, but I knew Byron had made that junk up. Besides, if Winnie the Pooh had an evil twin brother, it seems like I would have read about it somewhere. Some of the time it was kind of hard to understand what Grandma Sands was saying, but I couldn't remember her saying anything about any wool poo. If there really was something that snatched kids into the water, Mom and Daddy wouldn't have let us come down here, would they? I knew all the stuff, but I was still kind of nervous, and when I followed the little trail that went through a bunch of bushes and led to the water, I forgot all about Byron's lie as soon as I saw the water. Collier's Landing was great. The water was dark, dark blue, and best of all, it was 100 degrees cooler. Collier's sign had put up another sign on a giant tree. Warning, danger, no swimming. 6 lives have been lost here. Bad drop off. Signed Joe Collier. 6? Grandma had said one little boy drowned here, not 6. I felt dumb, but I looked really hard at the water to see if the wool Pooh was hiding there. I even looked up and down the shore to see if there was any strange footprints on the ground. I was kind of worried, but this sign looked a lot fresher than the first one. I kept waiting for Byron to jump out of the bushes and say something like, "Ah, you little dope, I've got you. I made you look for the wool Pooh." But everything was real calm and quiet. The water didn't even look like it was moving, but like it was breathing, going up and down, and it made a sound like the wind blowing through the big trees in Flint. I walked right to the edge of the water and still didn't see anything strange, so I figured if there really was anything dangerous, Byron would have followed me here and stopped me from getting hurt, wouldn't he? Then a bell went off in my head. I knew Joe Collier put that sign up because he didn't want to share his lake with anyone. The wool Pooh was just made up garbage. There's only one good thing about getting in trouble. It seems like you do it in steps. You seem like you don't just end up in trouble, but that you kind of ease yourself into it. It also seems like the worse the trouble is that you get into, the more steps it takes to get there. Sort of like getting a bunch of little warnings on the way. Sort of like if you really wanted you could turn around. The first warning I should have listened to was when Daddy Cool and Joey followed the arrow to the left and I went to the right. The second warning came when I decided to wade in the water and the knots wouldn't come out of my tennis shoe laces, and I had to pull and tug the shoes off with the laces still tight. After that, it's kind of hard to count how many warnings I got, because with the trouble I ended up in, it must have been a zillion of them. Step by step, I kept easing into trouble until I finally was standing in the lake with the water up to my knees. I'd gone out into the water because there was a bunch of little stupid-looking, slow-moving fish right near the shore, and I thought I might be able to catch some of them and make them pets. I wasn't afraid because I figured if there was a real wool Pooh and he was in the area, these little fish wouldn't be hanging around. Alabama fish were a lot friendlier and a lot trickier than Michigan ones. I bent over and stuck my hand in the water and tried to grab a couple of them. They kept slipping away like they were covered with soap. They were right there and I couldn't grab them. They didn't even act like they were afraid of me. They just kept swimming around my legs, even bumping their faces into me, like they were trying to kiss me. It seemed like they wanted me to catch them and take them back to Flint. After missing about 100 times, I stood up and saw the reason the fish wouldn't go in the deeper water. There was this big green turtle, about the size of a football, cruising back and forth in the deep water, and he looked just as slow and stupid as the fish did. Wow, who would have to have a fish for a pet? Who would want a fish for a pet when they could have a turtle? I took a few more steps out, and the cool blue water came all the way up to my arms. Getting cool all of a sudden like this made me bug my eyes and suck my breath. I made a quick grab for the stupid turtle, and zoom, he flapped his arms once and disappeared into the deep water. That quick grab was my last step. Boom! All of a sudden I was in big, big trouble. The rocky ground under my feet started sliding away from the shore. I didn't get nervous because I knew I could flap my arms like the turtle and get back to the dirt. I looked up and saw the shore was still really close. I flapped my arms and nothing happened. I stayed in the same spot. Then the rocks under my feet were gone, and I was kicking in water. With the tips of my toes I could still brush some of the rocks, but they were all slipping and sliding away from shore. I pushed away to try to swim back, and my head bobbed under the water. All the sound and light from Alabama disappeared because my eyes automatically shut and it seemed like my ears were stuffed with cotton. I got a mouthful of water, but my head came right back up and laughed because I was spitting and patooing a mile a minute when my head popped out of the water. But the laughing stopped real quick when I tried to swim again and my head went back under. That's when I got really scared. I'd seen enough cartoons to know that when your head goes down 3 times, it doesn't come back up again. I knew if I went down one more time, I was dead as a donut. My eyes looked to the shore where my shoes were sitting safe on some rocks. Oh man, I said to myself, I wish I had a magic lamp so I could have a genie make me be where those shoes are, and they would be where I am. That was the last thing I thought about before I found out that Grandma Sands, Byron, and Joe Collier weren't lying at all. That the last thing I thought about before I found out that the wool Pooh was real, and the big, mean, and horrible, and that he didn't care at all about dragging kids out into the water. I'd never ever been this scared in my life. I hollered out, Mama! My arms were punching the water like I was a person, and my legs were going a mile a minute to try to get back to shore, but now even my toes couldn't find anything to touch. Okay, Kenny, I said to myself, you know you're going to be all right. Just get real calm and swim back to land. When you count to 3, just go back to your shoes. I stopped kicking for a second and said, 1, 2, 3. Then I gave my arms one more flap to go back to shore, and down I went again. My head went under for the 3rd time, and I knew I'd never come back up again. Going down 3 times was like this was just like waking up and finding yourself tied to a tree with someone yelling, ready, aim, fire. That's when he came swimming real slow out of the deep, and even though my head was underneath the dark water, I could see him coming right at me. He didn't look like he was related to Winnie the Pooh at all. He was big and gray with a hard, square-looking fingers. Where he should have had a face, there was nothing but dark gray. Where he should have had eyes, there was nothing but darker, colder-looking color. He grabbed my leg and started pulling me down. I kicked and scratched at him, but he was just too strong. It seemed like he didn't even feel like my punches. My head felt like it was going to explode. I didn't think I could hold my breath for another second. I was feeling really, really scared and dizzy from holding my breath this long. Then suddenly I could see there was someone else in the water, and the wool Pooh was pulling me right back towards them. It was a little girl, and she had on real pretty blue dress and big yellow wings and something tied around her head. When the wool Pooh pulled me close, I could see that it was a little angel, and waiting a minute, it was Joletta, looking just like the angel Miss Davison had given her. Joey had wings and a halo. Her face was real calm, too, but she was pointing straight up like there was something important I should look at. This angel looked like Joey was telling me I had to swim up one more time. This really scared me. I knew it wasn't a good sign when you started seeing angels, so I kicked and flapped my arms and started going towards the sky. My head came up and I spit out a belly full of water and took a good deep breaths. Mama, Mama, help me! But the wool Pooh wasn't through with me. I felt his hard hand go around my ankle, and I went down for the 4th time. I got pulled a little farther and saw someone else in the water with me, kicking up a ton of dirt and scratching at the water like they were crazy. Byron, man, the wool Pooh was going to let me see all my family one time before I go. Byron tried grabbing at me, but the wool Pooh was pulling me away too fast. I saw Byron's legs swim back up towards the sky. Pull, wish, stop, pull, wish, stop. Up ahead someone else was in the water. It had to be Mama or Dad. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Dad. No, it's bye again. This, still looking all crazy, still scanning the water. Bye, and the whirlpool started duking it out. Mine must have hit it 100 times in the place where its face should have been. Finally, the whirlpool couldn't take any more, and I felt those hard, cold fingers come off my ankle. The whirlpool swam back into the deep water. The last thing I noticed about him was that he had a big, square toes. Byron grabbed me and put his arm around my neck, and I felt like he was trying to choke me. As soon as he got me to shore, he turned me upside down, and I felt like I was going to die. I started to throw up a ton of water and food. If there was a forest fire somewhere, all they would have to do was hold me over it, and I would put it out. I threw up and coughed and choked and vomited a million times, and all this just because I breathed some air. But held my ankles and kept banging me up and down and screaming at me. When the sound from the water in my ears and the sound of me vomiting my guts out and the whooshing sound of the whirlpool finally left me, I could hear Byron shouting, "Oh man, oh man, oh man," over and over. Finally I yelled, "Stop! Put me down!" Byron dropped me on the ground, right on top of all the water and junk I had thrown up. I knew he was going to make a stupid joke about me landing face first in all of that mess, but he didn't. He just wrapped his arms around my shoulders real tight and put his mouth right on top of my head. Byron was shaking me like he was getting electrocuted and crying like a baby and kissing the top of my head over and over. It was really disgusting. He just kept saying, "Kenny, Kenny, Kenny," a bunch of times with his mouth wide open on top of my head. I could feel his teeth grinding into my skull, but Bi didn't care. I said, "Oh, man," and I tried to make him quit, but all I could do was sit there, too tired to do anything but let Daddy Cool nibble on top of my head while he cried like a kindergarten baby.